I'm Kevin Rust, and I farm part-time with my dad. Dad started out with raising tobacco, and I've kind of switched over to just beef cattle. We haven't raised tobacco in about 20 years now. We have 80 acres here at the home farm, rent another 55 acres of hay ground and another 36 acres of pasture ground. Run a small cow-calf operation. Usually try to keep around 20 mama cows. Married to my wife Lisa. We've been married 28 years, have 2 children, Nicholas and Anna. Nicholas, my son, he likes to help in the hay, particularly of square baling. He likes lifting square bales. I guess it's just good exercise for him, and he enjoys that. And my daughter loves the calves. She loves to go out and help me feed the calves when I'm weaning calves, and she usually ends up naming them all. I usually don't let her name the one that we're keeping for our freezer beef, because then I have a hard time convincing her that it needs to be a freezer beef. My wife Lisa, she is an assistant secretary at St. Mary's Parish in Alexandria. Her father was a full-time farmer and dairy farmed, and she's always been very supportive of my farming vice, if you will. It's my golf, I guess you'd say, and she's always been very supportive of it. And she's had to sacrifice a lot, you know. I always look at Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day as my good hay weekends, because I got 3 days off work, so a lot of times we're not making plans then, but she's always been very supportive of my farming activities. And she helps a lot too. She's a pretty good tractor driver. She rakes for me a lot, rakes hay when I'm baling, and always running to get parts for me or bring me supper, you know, when I'm working late. I'm a 5th generation Campbell County native. Part of this farm was bought by my great-grandfather in 1937. The main farm that you'll see the footage of today was bought by my father in 1971. So it's been in the family a little over 50 years. Our family has always farmed. There was a point in time from 1911 until the early 2000s, a little over 90 years, where we raised tobacco on this farm, whether it was my grandfather, my father, or myself. And so that was a hard tradition to give up. But financially, it just wasn't viable to keep doing it. A lot of folks got out of tobacco because of a lack of labor. That was not the reason. Of course, we were always small. You know, we usually just raised 5 acres or so. But we always had plenty of friends and family that was always interested in helping, and they still talk about hanging tobacco in the barn behind us. That barn was built right around the Civil War era, so it's been, you know, that barn's 160-something years old. But a lot of the folks in 12 Mile have hung tobacco in that barn at one time or another, whether they were working for my grandfather, my dad, or myself. So when anybody ever comes here that hasn't been here in a long time, they walk down and look in the barn and look up in the rafters and all that. So that and the tree behind you are the 2 things that have been on this farm the longest. So I've always enjoyed the outdoors. Was always some activities to do, whether it be gardening or working in the tobacco patch. That was always good family time. Some of my best memories are in the stripping room with Dad, stripping tobacco. You know, that's when we talked about everything from sports to, you know, future plans and purchasing decisions and all that type of stuff. But I've always liked the outdoors, liked the work, and enjoy the animals too. It's a lot of fun raising crops and raising animals. So the main farm's located on Kentucky 10, Flag Springs Pike in California, Kentucky, or 12 Miles, most people know it as. I myself live on Washington Trace, which is the back side of the farm. The AA in the middle 80s cut the farm in half, so I live on the back side, and the main farming operations on the front side on Kentucky 10. We raise beef cattle, sell quite a few freezer beefs, and then also put up hay and haylage and sell hay and haylage to other local farmers. So starting out, we had a neighbor that was getting involved with native grasses, and they've always fascinated me. You know, I like history, I like reading about the grasses that were originally here, and also thought, you know, it was kind of cost effective because a lot of the native grasses don't need all the inputs, the fertilizer and such, that some of our other high producing grasses and legumes and that. So it really got me interested. I started reading up on eastern gamma grass, and I applied for an EQIP grant to plant some eastern gamma grass. And the first planting, I planted 10 acres and really liked it. moved on and planted some switchgrass, and then liked the gamma grass better than the switchgrass, so the next planting I went back to the gamma grass again. So in total over the years I've planted about 30 acres of native grasses. And then in dealing with the folks from NRCS, I got interested in other conservation practices, so went to them and applied again for EQIP funding and put in a stream crossing, an animal trail, fenced out a creek, put in some waterers for the farm, and implemented rotational grazing. And some of the funding for that came through the Campbell County Conservation District, and some of it came through EQIP, and then some of it came from the tobacco settlement funds. I use fence line weaning for my calves. It's less stress on the cows and the calves. So I applied for and received cost share funds to build a weaning pen for my calves. That way the cows can be just outside the pen and they can touch noses and all that. It seems like it's easier on the cows and calves. And then I went to a controlled breeding season where I have all my calves, try to have them all within 45 days. This year I was fortunate enough that they all came in 24 days. It's a small herd, but it's probably even more important to have a concentrated breeding season. So the bull pen, to keep the bull away from the cows and the heifers so that I can have a controlled breeding season, has made a difference for me. The Conservation District participates in cost share for dead animal removal, and unfortunately this year I had to take advantage of that. I had a cow. She had a calf, and it was a very, very large calf and an older cow, and she had trouble. So she passed away, and so I called Shipley & Sons Dead Animal Removal, and I would have done it anyway, but it's a lot nicer knowing that the Conservation District will pick up 75% of the tab, because it is expensive. I think it was $350, so my part was $87.50, and that's a lot more palatable, particularly after you just lost a $800 or $900 cow and a, potentially that much in a calf too. So it's already a hit and then a financial hit, but it's a very nice service. Another thing they just implemented, I haven't taken advantage of yet, but they have a program, like a continuing education program. If you attend an event, they'll cover the registration cost for you. I'm all about education. I've been farming 40 years and I learn something new every year. So I try to leave the ground in better shape than what I found it. If I'm renting a place, I try to get rid of some of the invasive species. Usually don't stick a lot of money into other folks' places, but I do stick a lot of time into their places, trying to fence out a pond and put a water tank below it. Things that you can do cost effectively that end up being better for your livestock anyway. They're drinking cleaner water if you do something like that. So I have something to gain out of it too, but I don't want somebody thinking, well, he just came in and took advantage of my property and took whatever he needed, but didn't look out for my property. I try to leave everybody's farm in better shape than what I found it.